In this video, we're going to talk about what makes a surface. We're going to talk about the different data types that can be used to define the way a surface is built, and then we're going to go ahead and add one of those data types to our surface so that we can start displaying our surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop down our surfaces section inside of the tool space under the prospector tab. We're going to drop down our EG surface, and then we're going to look at what the definitions of a surface will be. Inside of these definitions, these are the different types of data that can be added to a surface to define how you're building your surface. So the first item we have is boundaries. Boundaries are basically setting an outer limit or an inner limit of a display area inside of your surface. So an outer boundary will clip all the information outside of that boundary. A inner or a hide boundary will hide information inside of a surface. There's a show boundary, which will show information inside of a hide boundary. And then you have a data clip boundary, which will clip data out of the surface definitions. Then you have break lines. Break lines are additional lines like these lines that we have displayed from our survey import. What they do is they define additional elevations that we're going to build our surface off of. They kind of force triangulation. So there's multiple types of break lines. We'll go over the different types of break lines when we're adding them in, but there are destructive and non-destructive break lines. There are wall break lines. And if you look in here, you can choose add and you can see the different types. You can see standard, proximity, which basically pulls information in. Then you have your walls, and then you can import break lines from a file, and then we have non-destructive break lines. Then we have contours. If you have a polyline or a feature line or something like that that is set at a specific elevation and you know that line is a contour that has been defined or determined, then what you can do is you can add those objects into your drawing as a specific contour, and then you can use that line to dictate what the surface is going to look like. If you have DEM files, you can import them into Civil 3D through the DEM file definition. So you would just right click and add, and then you would find your DEM file and import it into the drawing. Then you have drawing objects. So if you have a polyline or a arc or a curve or a line, any kind of drawing object, you can go ahead and right click add and then select the type of drawing object that you want to add to your surface. The next item you have is edits. Edits are not a specific item that you can add in, but this is where if you perform a surface edit, whether you're going to do line edits to a surface or point edits to a surface, your edit log will be stored here, as well as you can raise and lower surfaces, minimize flat areas. You can smooth your surface. So if it seems too angular or too jagged, you can smooth that surface or simplify it by weeding out points from a drawing. Or if you have multiple surfaces, you can paste them together to create a new surface that is based on other surfaces that have been brought into the drawing. Then we have point files. If you don't import point files into your drawing, but you want to base a surface off of a certain point file, you can right click and add, and then choose the point file by hitting the plus symbol, locating it somewhere on your computer, and then specifying the point file format and importing that information in just to create one specific surface. Then we have our point groups up in the prospector tab. You can take any of those point groups and tell Civil 3D to build a surface based off of those point groups. And then below that, you have queries for the types of entities that you have inside of your surface. So if you want to ask Civil 3D about certain points that are made up of this surface, then you can do a point query. If you want to do a figure survey query, you can ask Civil 3D about specific figures that are being used to create your surface. So the first entity that we're going to go ahead and add to create the initial display of our surface is we're going to add a point group. So we're going to right click on point groups. We're going to select add. They're going to give us a list of the point groups available inside of this drawing. We have created this GS point group. It is specific ground shots that we want to add to the drawing. If we use Topo Survey, there might be entities that don't define a specific spot on the surface. You might have a reflectorless shot, and all of your points that were brought in as part of the survey are inside of Topo Survey. Same thing goes for all points. We had those calc points that we created at the beginning of this. If you chose all points, it would include those calc points. And those calc points we set at a 0 elevation. And so it wouldn't be a reflective image of what our actual surface looks like if we inserted those 0 elevation points into our drawing. So the first point group we want to add is GS. So we're going to click OK. And then if we regen, you'll see that the surface is now displayed with contours as has been defined by our 2 and 10 background surface style.